Welcome to Moonlight Tales, where we share folk tales full of wisdom, magic, and imagination. Please like, comment and subscribe to the Courier Protocol. Chapter 1, The Initial Briefing. The air in the secure bunker beneath Azmar's capital tasted of ozone and dry concrete, a stark contrast to the dust-choked streets above. Zola, the only active Courier 7, stood before the holographic projection of Director Lyra. Her heart rate remained a steady, trained 60 BPM. The package is active, Courier, Lyra's voice crackled, devoid of warmth or inflection, filling the small, sterile room. Zola felt the familiar, cold weight of the specialized titanium containment unit strapped beneath her armored vest. This was the most critical assignment of her career. The instructions were simple, brutal, and absolute: deliver the unit to coordinates Tau 9, deep within the Great Rift Valley, by sunrise. The Courier Protocol demanded silence, speed, and absolute adherence to the prescribed route, no matter the obstacle. Zola nodded, her eyes tracking the flickering infrared map displaying the labyrinthine extraction path through the neon-lit slums. Failure was not a concept recognized by the protocol, and she had never failed. She moved toward the ventilation shaft, the only exit, her hand instinctively checking the balance of the specialized choke button secured at her hip. Chapter 2, Departure from the Grid. Zola burst onto a rooftop shrouded in the electric glow of the city's underbelly, the humidity immediately gripping her skin like a second uniform. The noise of the sprawling market 20 stories below was a distant, chaotic hum. She took a moment to recalibrate her augmented vision, filtering out the light pollution to find the pre-designated jumps. The cargo, the package, emitted a faint, rhythmic vibration against her ribs, a biological pulse that was somehow both comforting and terrifying. The first jump was a treacherous, 15-meter gap across to a precarious crane arm jutting over the abyss. Wind tore at her cloak. Suddenly, a metallic snap echoed from the adjacent building. She wasn't alone. A dark silhouette, impossibly fast, detached itself from the shadows and lunged directly toward her position with predatory intent. Chapter 3, Rooftop Interception. The attacker was fluid, armored, and carried no visible weapon, relying solely on brute force and overwhelming speed to close the distance. Zola immediately recognized the signature training: they were side agents. She sidestepped the initial rush, letting the agent's momentum carry him toward the edge, but he caught himself with terrifying precision. Zola unleashed her shock button, the cobalt blue energy singing as it struck the reinforced plating of his forearm. The side agent grunted, barely recoiling, and then launched a counterattack that was swift and highly personalized. His movements were almost identical to Zola's own combat style. How did they learn my sequence? The question flashed in Zola's mind, a flicker of panic threatening to break her concentration for the first time. She dropped low, executing a move only taught to the highest level couriers, breaking the agent's stance and sending him tumbling over the railing into the market below. Chapter 4, The Market Maze. The fall of the side agent created immediate, localized chaos, but Zola couldn't afford to observe the damage. The scent of pursuit was now heavy in the air. She needed to descend rapidly into the maze. She found a maintenance cable, slick with oil and rain, and rappelled down the vertical face of the structure, using her gauntlets to slow the descent just enough. The market was a riot of sound, scent, and tightly packed humanity, making movement nearly impossible. The protocol dictated that she should avoid engagement with civilians, prioritizing the cargo's secrecy above all, even at the cost of speed. She plunged into the crowd, becoming a shadow among the vendors selling spices, electronics, and synthetic fabrics under makeshift awnings. She could hear the distinctive, high-pitched whir of side drones beginning to patrol the air above the market canopy. They were converging quickly. Chapter 5, Betrayal in the Shadows. Zola ducked into a narrow, unlit alleyway, the air thick with the smell of waste and incense, and finally allowed herself a moment to scan the internal unit monitor. The package was stable, its pulse strong. Her secure communication channel suddenly activated, overriding the ambient noise filter in her helmet. Courier 7. Abort. Repeat, abort mission, Lyra's voice ordered, sharp with new urgency. Protocol does not allow for aborting an active delivery, Zola responded automatically, her throat tight with confusion. Lyra never broke protocol. The unit is compromised. The site has compromised us all. Drop the package and exfil immediately, Lyra insisted, the panic in her tone undeniable. Zola hesitated, staring at the small, glowing canister secured to her chest. Compromised how? She knew the protocol was designed to be unbreakable, the ultimate line of defense. Chapter 6, The Unspoken Command. Zola ignored the command to abort, disconnecting the comms unit and relying solely on her own instincts, which screamed forward. The protocol was the mission was the protocol. She knew that if the package were truly compromised, only delivery would offer the chance for a clean, secure analysis. Abandoning it meant losing it entirely to the predatory side. She scaled a low wall, vaulting over discarded machinery and heading toward the rusted, abandoned railway lines that sliced through the city's heart like a scar. The elevated path offered a clear run, but also zero cover. As she ran, the rhythmic pulse of the package intensified slightly, moving from a stable thrum to a faint, urgent beat against her. She felt a strange, almost paternal protectiveness toward the cargo, a feeling that went against her years of detached training as a courier. Chapter 7, Train Track Pursuit. On the elevated tracks, Zola was silhouetted against the dark sky, a clear target for any high-altitude surveillance. She pushed her legs to their absolute limit, the ancient rail ties blurring beneath her tactical boots. 3 powerful searchlights snapped on, locking onto her position from the distant, imposing structure of the Azmar Central Tower. A sleek, high-speed security vehicle was approaching rapidly from the south. This wasn't the site, this was the official Azmar security apparatus, Blackwatch. They never intervened in Aegis operations. A wave of confusion mixed with adrenaline hit her. Now she was being hunted by 3 different factions, 2 of which were supposedly allies. She prepared to leap onto a parallel cargo train, judging its speed, realizing the complexity of her situation had just escalated into full-scale war. Chapter 8, The Hidden Marker. As the Blackwatch vehicle closed the distance, Zola successfully landed on the roof of the slow-moving cargo train, the wind whipping her hair across her face. The metal groaned beneath her weight. She noticed a minute, nearly invisible metallic sheen on the roof of the train car directly ahead of her, a micro-tracker, sophisticated and non-standard issue. It was identical to the custom trackers only couriers themselves used to mark their personal extraction points. Zola immediately knew the signal must have been placed by someone deeply familiar with her own methods, someone from inside the protocol's inner circle. A single, horrifying name flashed through her mind, a person she had believed was dead and certainly loyal to the end. Chapter 9, The Safe House Trap. The coordinates for her planned rendezvous, a derelict seismology station, were now only 10 kilometers away, offering the first opportunity for secure, underground cover. She jumped from the train and sprinted across the dry, rocky savanna. When she arrived, The air was still and too quiet, lacking the usual residual wind noise the station always generated. The reinforced steel hatch was open a centimeter, a dark, inviting slit. Zola didn't hesitate, recognizing the classic, deadly trade-off. Safety was always a mirage, the only reality was forward momentum. She slipped inside, the hatch closing silently behind her. Inside, the emergency lights flickered on, revealing an empty, dust-coated chamber, but the air conditioning was humming faintly. She realized with a sickening jolt that the trap was not the building itself, but the false sense of security provided by the running machinery. Chapter 10: The Voice of the Past. From the darkness of a utility closet, a voice Zola had mourned for 5 years spoke, soft and resonant, echoing off the concrete walls. You are predictably efficient, Zola. Always follow the route. It was Kale, her former mentor, the man who had taught her every move, the man she had loved before he vanished on a critical delivery. He stood in the shadows, holding a simple data key. The protocol is compromised, but not the way Lyra told you, Kale continued, stepping into the dim light. He wore the signature black of the site, confirming Zola's worst fear. He didn't look like a fanatic, but merely tired, his eyes holding a mix of sorrow and grim determination. He was not here for the fight, but for a discussion. Give me the package, Zola. The protocol must be broken, or Aegis wins everything. Chapter 11: The Genetic Secret. Zola raised her baton, the cobalt glow illuminating the tension in the room, but Kale remained motionless, his hands held open in a gesture of nonviolence. I won't fight you, Zola. I want you to look. He projected the data key's content onto the dusty wall, complex genetic schematics overlaid with Aegis watermarks. It was a molecular blueprint for a synthetic organ, highly advanced bioware. Aegis didn't create the package to save a person, Kale explained, his voice hushed. They created it to mass replicate a highly valuable, nearly extinct specimen in the Azmar region. The package was a genetic key, designed not for implantation, but for seeding a bioreactor that could infinitely produce this organism's specific attributes. The realization sent a dizzying wave of coldness through Zola. Her entire life had been built on a lie serving a massive, genetic trafficking operation disguised as philanthropy. Chapter 12: The Scandalous Truth Revealed. Kale finally revealed the full, scandalous truth, speaking in a rapid whisper. The package is the synthetic heart of the last surviving Azmar Black Rhino, genetically perfect. He explained that Aegis had isolated the rhino's unique longevity gene, and planned to use the protocol to deliver the synthetic heart to a private, underground rancher. The rancher, a wealthy collector, would then pay billions for the exclusive, genetically locked ability to save and then own the entire species. This wasn't about conservation, it was about proprietary genetic control over a national treasure, turning the rhino into a corporate asset. The Courier Protocol was the ultimate insurance policy, ensuring the asset reached its destination without interruption, bypassing all legitimate regulatory authorities. Chapter 13: Zola's Crisis of Faith. Zola lowered the baton, her face a mask of shock, the package suddenly feeling less like a sacred duty and more like a stolen object. The protocol's foundation had just crumbled. All her years of training, the loyalty, the rigid discipline, had been in service of corporate greed and genetic slavery. She felt a profound wave of disillusionment. Kale saw the flicker of doubt in her eyes and pressed his advantage. Aegis faked my death because I discovered this plan and refused to play their game. The side, he clarified, is simply the resistance. A group dedicated to ensuring that unique, precious life remains free, not licensed. She looked at the humming canister, its biological pulse now seeming like a caged animal beating against its prison walls. Chapter 14. Choosing a side. What do you want me to do, Kale? Zola finally asked, her voice raspy, the sound of years of indoctrination being broken. She knew he wouldn't ask her to destroy the package. I want you to complete the delivery, but change the coordinates, he instructed, pulling up a new, encrypted map on her tactical display. The new route led not to the collector's reactor, but to an ancient, unmonitored Azmar bioreserve deep in the desert. He explained that this reserve had the only remaining, truly wild, uncloned female rhino. The package's heart, though synthetic, was the only thing that could save her mate, the last male. If Zola delivered it to the reserve, it would restore the species naturally, outside of Aegis's greedy, proprietary control. Chapter 15. The Double Cross. As Kale finished speaking, the seismology station's internal security system, which he had supposedly disabled, suddenly activated with a blinding array of laser grids. A beautiful speech, Kale, but utterly predictable. Lyra's voice boomed over the station's main speakers, chillingly close, revealing she had been monitoring them all along. Zola realized Kale's plan, his very appearance, had been known to Aegis from the start, a calculated risk to expose any wavering loyalty. Kale swore, lunging toward Zola and shoving her toward a maintenance tunnel just as the first automated turret whirred to life. Go. Now. They'll take the package from both of us. Zola plunged into the dark tunnel, clutching the canister, the sound of Lyra's security forces already breaching the main hatch above them. Chapter 16. Escape into the Badlands. Zola crawled through the tight, dusty tunnel, the reinforced walls muffling the frantic exchange of gunfire behind her. She knew Kale was sacrificing himself to buy her time. She emerged onto the desolate badlands of Azmar, the sun already dipping below the horizon, painting the sky in violent shades of orange and blood red. She was now truly alone. The original protocol coordinates were still active on her internal GPS, a tempting but fatal path. She switched her objective to the bioreserve, following Kale's new, challenging trajectory. She moved with renewed purpose, no longer a courier serving a protocol, but a protector guarding a life. The heavy equipment suddenly felt lighter. The desert landscape stretched out, hostile and unforgiving, but Zola found a grim kind of peace in the clear danger of the elements. Chapter 17. Sandstorm Ambush. A massive, unforgiving sandstorm, common in this region, erupted without warning, swallowing the already fading light and reducing visibility to zero. The grit immediately began to clog Zola's helmet vents. She was forced to take refuge inside the skeletal remains of an ancient, pre-war observation tower, huddling against the package, trying to shield its sensitive components from the abrasive sand. Suddenly, a high-pitched, metallic whine pierced the howling storm, not from the wind, but from a side grav-back. They had tracked Kale's compromise signal. Two figures dismounted the bike, their outlines blurred by the storm, and they moved with a precise, synchronized hunter's rhythm. Zola was trapped, blinded by the storm and facing superior numbers in an incredibly confined space within the tower ruins. Chapter 18. The Confined Fight. Zola used the narrow confines of the tower to her advantage, using the thick stone columns as cover, fighting in close quarters combat against the two side agents. She relied less on the shock button and more on calculated, disabling strikes aimed at joints and armor weak points, conserving her energy for the long journey ahead. One agent lunged, and Zola sidestepped, using the agent's forward momentum to send him crashing headfirst into a crumbling wall, which collapsed entirely. The second agent, surprisingly, paused mid-attack, holding up a universal signal for parley. Kale is a traitor to us too, Courier. He was going to give the package to you, he said urgently. The side, Zola realized, had only wanted the package to prevent Aegis's trafficking, but they hadn't planned for Kale's romantic, altruistic change of heart. Chapter 19, An Uneasy Alliance. The side agent, introducing himself only as Echo, offered Zola a proposition, an uneasy, temporary alliance against the primary threat, Aegis and their immediate, heavy pursuit teams. Echo explained that Aegis's main extraction force, led by a ruthless operative named Commander Voss, was only 20 minutes behind them, following Zola's last non-telemetry signal. We want the same thing, to keep Aegis from winning, Echo insisted, pointing to the new, private coordinates Kale had given her. That reserve is the only solution. Zola weighed the risks, trusting a side agent was against every fiber of her being, but Commander Voss was notoriously brutal and efficient. She looked at the canister and then back at Echo. You take the lead. You know this land better than I do. But you touch the package, I kill you. Chapter 20, Voss's Arrival. The uneasy ally sprinted out of the ruins, using the dying moment of the sandstorm for cover, heading east toward the vast, protected reserve zone. They managed to cover only a kilometer before the unmistakable, deafening sound of an Aegis extraction dropship shattered the quiet desert air. Commander Voss had caught up. The dropship descended quickly, kicking up a furious, localized dust cloud. Voss himself, a towering figure in Aegis black armor, rappelled down, flanked by two heavily armed tactical units. Courier 7. Final warning. Surrender the asset, or be terminated, Voss's amplified voice boomed, completely dominating the landscape. Zola pulled the package out from under her vest and held it up, making sure Voss could see the delicate canister in the fading light. Chapter 21, The Diversion. If you shoot, you risk damaging the unit, Zola yelled back, playing the only card she had left, the value of the asset. I'm within range of the reserve's defensive perimeter. Voss hesitated for a critical moment, realizing the truth. If Zola made it to the reserve, its high-frequency noise dampeners would scramble his surveillance, making termination impossible. Echo took advantage of the standoff, pulling a specialized, high-intensity flare from his pack and activating it, throwing it directly toward the dropship's landing gear. The flare exploded in a dazzling burst of blinding white light, disorienting the pilot and causing the ship to sway violently, forcing Voss to redirect his immediate attention. Zola took off, running with all the speed she could muster, following the final, coded coordinates Kale had given her. The betrayal now fueled her every stride. Chapter 22, The Final Push. The bioreserve's high-tech perimeter fence loomed into view, a shimmer of heat distortion across the horizon, looking miles away in the vastness of the Azmar desert. Voss was right on her heels, his heavy-duty assault boots kicking up plumes of dust, gaining on her with every step. Echo was still fighting the tactical units back near the dropship. Zola ran into a stretch of treacherous, rocky terrain, slowing her pace but also making it difficult for Voss to maintain his full speed in his heavy gear. She had to make it to the main gate. The package was only safe once the unique frequency of the reserve's internal power grid shielded it. She pushed past the wall of exhaustion, feeling the protocol, the rules, the lies, finally falling away, replaced by the simple, fierce determination to save a single, precious life. Chapter 23, Breaching the Gate. Zola reached the massive, imposing metal gate of the reserve, which was shut tight. It was controlled by a simple biometric lock, designed for park rangers, not couriers. Voss was only 50 meters behind her, raising his rifle. The familiar, chilling blue light of his energy weapon began to charge up. Zola grabbed a small, specialized EMP coil from her belt, a piece of old, outdated tech she kept for emergencies, and slammed it against the biometric panel. The EMP coil sparked violently, short-circuiting the panel and forcing the massive metal gate to groan open just enough for her to slip through. As she tumbled onto the other side, the gate slammed shut, and Voss's energy blast struck the thick, unmoving steel with a deafening, futile clang. Chapter 24, Delivery and Freedom. Zola found herself on a rough, dirt track, surrounded by the towering, silent acacia trees of the reserve. The air was cleaner, filled with the scent of wild herbs. She followed the path until she reached a small, camouflaged veterinary station, where a lone, aging female rhino stood, guarded by 2 rangers. The other, the male, was clearly ill. She placed the package on a clean table, the rhythmic pulse of the synthetic heart still strong and steady against the wood, having survived the entire ordeal. "The Courier Protocol is terminated," Zola whispered to the nearest ranger, feeling the weight of the past lift from her shoulders completely. She then turned her secure comms unit to static, ensuring Lyra and Aegis would never track her again. She knew she was now the most wanted woman in Azmar, having broken the protocol for the sake of the protocol's true meaning, her life. Chapter 25, The Rogue Courier. Zola didn't stay to watch the surgery, knowing her presence would only endanger the reserve and the rhino. She vanished back into the shadows of the protected forest. She was now officially an exile, haunted by Aegis, betrayed by her mentor Kale, though he acted for the right reasons, and chased by the Azmar authorities. The protocol was dead, the courier lived. She looked back once, seeing the lights of the veterinary station through the trees, a small beacon of hope and genuine purpose in the dark, vast landscape. The final chapter of her life, a rogue agent dedicated to undoing Aegis's genetic control, was just beginning to be written. The scandal was not a delivery gone wrong, but the terrifying realization that the only way to fulfill the protocol's original, noble intent was to shatter it entirely. Thanks for listening to today's folktale. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories next time.